So, how's it going? Um, I'm hoping this will amplify me properly because I can't be too loud because it's nighttime here. My landlords are asleep next door. I rent a room. Yes, living that high life. But anyway, I just wanted to record another installment from this book, the Legends of the Egyptian Gods, Hieroglyphic Texts and Translations by E.A. Wallace Budge. He's like the towering figure, one of the towering figures of Egyptology. Like my mom knew who he was, and she's like not, an Egyptologist or anything, but she knows a lot of stuff, but still, it's like he's somebody that if you knew anybody in Egyptology, you would know Budge. So, there's a story here where it talks about the creation of America. And so let's see, I'll just go over that part really quickly again and then go on to this next part. So, all right. So it says, "And the majesty of this god, Re, the sun, said unto Nut, the sky, I have placed myself upon my back in order to stretch myself out. What then is the meaning of this? It meaneth that he united himself with Nut. Then said the majesty of this god, I am departing from them, i.e. from men, and he must come after me who would see me." So by going on his back, it means he's retrograde. It's like it's the sunset, He's curling around, he's becoming retrograde, and he's departing from men because he's leaving he's leaving Africa, he's leaving Afro-Eurasia to the west. So he says, if you want to see me, sun worshippers, followers of Re, then follow me across the Atlantic. And then the master of this god, then the majesty of this god looked forth from its interior. So it says, first it says, thus came into being ellipses. So we're not sure what's there, what that means. It might be Aker or Tuat or something. It might just mean, we don't know what that is. Then the majesty of this god looked forth from its interior. So that probably is either Aker or Tuat. Probably Aker. I don't know. Meaning like basically the place where the underworld is, like the antipodal zone underneath the earth where the sun is at midnight. And then the majesty of this god looked forth from its interior, saying, gather together men for me, and make ready for me an abode for multitudes. Thus came into being, and then there's just an ellipsis, so it's either untranslated or redacted, and it's probably either Amontet or Duat, Tuat. There's a word, it's Duat, usually called Duat, but also Tuat, and the original form, I think, was Dot, D-A-T. And that's either a name for America or just for the area, for the underworld realm where America is. So in that case, it might include parts of surrounding land masses. I don't know. So this came into being basically America, because it's, you know, he says, I'm going away, I'm turning around, I'm going under the earth, and he wants to create an abode for multitudes under the earth. So that's America, because, you know, it's vis-a-vis the perspective of Egyptians. So, and his majesty, life, health, and strength be to him, said, let a great field, Sekhet, be produced, Hetep. Thereupon Sekhet Hetep came into being, and the god said, I will gather herbs, Arat, within. Thereupon Sekhet Aru came into being, and the god said, I will make it to contain as dwellers things, Ket, like stars of all sorts. So yeah, the field Sekhet Hetep and Sekhet Aru, it relates to like the Elysian fields, the field of reeds. I think that probably Arat may be what is often translated as reeds. I believe so. It's usually called the field of reeds, but here Budge calls it the field of herbs. And it might be kind of a dual meaning, or, you know, a broader meaning. But this might relate to the underworld maps of America. Like, you know, I can kind of show you on this other book. This is a big ass book, like through Hermepolitan lenses, studies on the so-called Book of Two Ways in Ancient Egypt by Whale Sherbini. This is one of the most important books ever written, and I'm glad it was written. It came out in 2017, and I somehow I think I got this copy because they glitched, like they fucked up the page numbers. There's some part of the heading on the top of the pages that is fucked up, so I got it for $40 instead of like $300, which is what it's supposed to be. Stoked. Anyway, so I'll just show you, like, it's gonna be backwards because of the phone, but I'll just fuck. All right, so this is going to be backwards, but you can see this is, you know, this is a map of America. This one is a very important one because it is illustrated. It's the only one, or yeah, I mean, it's the only one that's illustrated except for one some that are a totally different style. So those ones are really stylized. So you can't really tell the geography at all. But this one has the geography relatively normal, but it actually shows the lakes and islands, whereas the other ones usually just put text where the lakes and islands are, and then they describe them, and then presumably there are drawings of them elsewhere that they could reference, and then they could just consult the text and be like, okay, that's the shape of this island, but they'll have maybe another papyrus that shows the actual shape of it, so they don't have to actually draw it all on the map. But this one actually draws a lot of them, you know, paints a lot of them on. And it's just interesting that at least in one spot, they have a, let's see, I don't know, this is going to be impossible, but basically along like there's some of the localities that are listed in America on this map are they're kind of shown as staves or kind of like reeds. They're like these long just lines that represent each one, and they're probably waterways. Like in this instance, I think they include the Great Lakes, which was a major center of copper mining from about 8,500 years ago. And, it has the Great Lakes have the purest copper deposits in the world, I believe. And so like on I think it's Ile Royale or something. Forget how to pronounce it, but yeah, like there's an island in Lake Superior which is especially known as having the earliest, I think the earliest known copper mines at about 8,500 years old. And so yeah, it's like just a stylized way that there's all these different labels for what are presumably different waterways, different lakes and rivers, and each one is kind of like this long, depicted, or it's symbolized with these long symbols, and so that might relate to the field of reeds. And this is particularly in the road to the ones who live off the dates or the fruits of Osiris. So I think that relates to the copper nuggets and boulders or whatever, since Osiris is a land god, earth god. And so this is shown along the like northwest coast, basically, like around Western Canada, basically. So that might relate to the field of reeds, that these long, skinny, like symbols are referred to as reeds. It's a possibility, because I know in the story, like Mesopotamian story of Inanna in the underworld, that also refers to the reeds, and it refers to the spirits of the underworld rising like reeds. So these are the spirits of the underworld, like the lakes and rivers are the spirits of the underworld, and the islands, and America itself is a spirit. America itself is Amentet Neferet, who's a goddess, called Hel in English, but she was called Hel, our queen, by the Anglo-Saxon, by our Anglo-Saxon ancestors before all the psyops. But anyway, so yeah, that might be the origin of that, or the meaning of that field of reeds thing. And then it talks about the field of offerings, and that seems to be located in the south, like either South America or maybe either Panama or South America, potentially around I don't know. I'm not sure if it has anything to do with Easter Island, or if, like, originally, because I think on the earliest map, Easter Island is included and attached to the mainland by the Nazca Ridge in the Hieroconpolitan map of 5,500 years ago, Tomb 100. But yeah, I'm not sure. So if there's the field of reeds is maybe in the North America, and the field of offerings is in South America. Not entirely sure what that means. If maybe that's where they came to get cocaine. I don't know. Maybe that was the offering. I really don't know. But anyway, like it seems like they might have collected tobacco and cocaine, because it seems like tobacco might be indicated on this map in the Chesapeake region. There's like a little deity. Yeah, that little guy with the feather on his head. I think that feather might actually relate to tobacco. I don't know, because I think it might be the feather of Mot, and Mot is something that you inhale. So it's kind of like Soma, because Mot is also Venus, the planet, it seems. So just like Soma in the Hindu tradition is reportedly the moon, but is also a intoxicating beverage that is drunk, and the headgear seems significant because the Great Lakes god has an Aten on his head, like which might symbolize the fact that, because that's exactly where the Ile Royale, or whatever, the oldest copper mines are, right where his head is, right where his crown is, the Aten, and so I think the sun may have, solar disk in this case, may have represented like the copper, because it's like a sort of golden color like the sun. And then there's also like the longest spell in this in these coffins in the Book of Two Ways is just below there, or not just below, but it's a bit below there, and but parallel to there, and it begins by saying, referring to the traveler, basically the voyager, as the one who collects the something metal, and a lot of scholars believe that the something metal, they translate it as copper. So yeah, that's probably the fruits of Osiris, the dates of Osiris, what were called the Apples of Avalon to the Welsh. The British called it the Apples of Avalon. The Greeks called it the Apples of Hesperides, which means the same thing as Amentet. Amentet means west, Hesperides means west. All right, so anyway, that's can't really show that much because the phone's flipped, but I think I'll do a video later, like tomorrow or the next day, where I'll flip the phone and I'll just be showing stuff instead of showing my my weird mug, my weird face, my jacked up skin, and everything. All right, so where were we? This little fortune cookie fortune that I'm using as my thing. What does it say? Your ganja feel real good in an hour. I don't know, I got this from, I got a fortune cookie from a pot club, but I wasn't even really sure if the fortune cookie had THC in it or not, but the paper kind of makes it seem like it did. I don't know, I couldn't tell. It tasted alright, but alright, so there the Sekhet Hetep and Sekhet Aru came into being. And also, it might be related that, Teotihuacan, what some call the first city in America, or at least the first major city in North America, was called the Place of Reeds by, reportedly by the Maya or the Aztecs. And also Tula is another very early site I believe it specifically means the place of reeds. and Toltecs, I think their name might derive from that. So they were kind of like considered sort of proto-Aztecs. Anyway, so I'm not sure, but that all might relate to it. And also at Teotihuacan, the center of it was named like the Avenue of the Dead, I believe. There's like a long road from like the pyramid of, unless I'm thinking of Tenochtitlan, but one or the other, they had like their main road was the Road of the Dead. So they, they followed all this same stuff, and a lot of them were Egyptian or, Egyptianized. Like the Mesoamerican codices are Egyptian books of the dead, largely. I mean, they're also Tibetan books of the dead, but they mix the two. Like they use the symbols, like there's the 12 auspicious symbols or something of Buddhism. They use those too, but they also use hieroglyphs and like Egyptian symbols and Hindu. Anyway, they use a bunch of stuff. So that all came into being, and the god said, I will make it to contain as dwellers things kept like stars of all sorts. Thereupon the stars Akeka came into being. Then the goddess Nut trembled because of the height, and the majesty of Re said, I decree that supports. So anyway, I think the reason that all the stars live here in America is because for the Egyptians, like, they see all the stars and the moon and the sun going over the sky. So then, since they're treated anthropomorphically as like humanoid gods, then it's natural that when they're not going over the sky, they're underneath, they go under the horizon, and then that's their home, and they're sleeping, like if they're humanoid, if they're gods, they're at rest, and so that's their home. Just like for us in this tradition, like for me, like Madagascar is like that's my ultimate antipode basically, but like, basically like Ukraine or something. Like Ukraine would be like the opposite side of the world in terms of longitude. So that's where all the stars and planets live for us, and then they come out. That's where they sleep. They go home. They sleep. They fuck. They do whatever, and then they wake up and go back over our sky. And so that's cool. So a lot of this is like very universal in all ancient religions, and including a lot of this is in Christianity and Judaism. Like the Jews called America Sheol. And, the Bible calls it Hades. It's where Jesus goes, like during the harrowing, like during the 3 days and 3 nights, like Inanna and Jesus, they both spend 3 days and 3 nights in America. Inanna being Venus, the planet. So anyway, then it starts describing like how you create it's basically instructions for how to paint a symbolic like mural of the cosmos and what hieroglyphs to put on it and stuff. All right. And it's interesting that it says it has Isis or Mot. It says, close to his feet in an opposite direction shall read Mot, and they come in and I protect daily. So Mot is Venus, so she protects the sun because she's the morning star, like as Isis, and she's the evening star as Nephthys. So she kind of is often seen to accompany the sun and is seen to protect him from like danger. And then the majesty of this god, so there's still Re. Then the majesty of this god spake unto Thoth, saying, let a call go forth for me to the majesty of the god Seb, saying, come with the utmost speed at once. So Seb is the earth, as far as, like, unless I've been woefully misled, but every source seems to say that Seb is earth. Seb is also called Geb, and Seb is also in Mesoamerica because he's often, as Sebek, one of his forms is Sebek, which is or also sometimes called Sopki, which is crocodilian. He's a crocodilian earth god. And so in that same crocodilian earth god, crocodile land god is the Aztec, so Sebek in Egypt. In the Aztec, he's Cipactli, and for the Mayans, he's Cipacna, but he's depicted, very similar in all three. And I think he probably exists in the Mixtec pantheon, but I'm not sure his name in there. Then the majesty of this god spake unto Thoth, saying, let a call go forth from me to the majesty of the god Seb, saying, come with the utmost speed at once. And when the majesty of Seb had come, the majesty of this god said unto him, let war be made against thy worms, or and then in parentheses, Budge writes, or serpents, which are in thee. Verily they shall knowest their magical powers. Do thou go to the place where my father Nu is, and say unto him, keep ward over the worms, or serpents, which are in the earth and water. And so this still leads me further to suspect that Nu, even though it's always translated as being the primordial waters that are in the heavens or something, that Nu might actually just straight up be the ocean. Because, that Seb is talking to Nu, Seb is the land, Nu might be the ocean, and they're dealing with the snakes, which are largely in water. They're associated with water, both freshwater and salt water. I don't know, some kind of serpenty things probably in salt water. Anyway, and moreover, thou shalt make a writing for each of the nests of thy serpents, and yada yada. So I don't know what all that means, honestly. But sure, it might be kind of literal, but it's probably more cosmological, symbolic. And the majesty of this god said, call to me the god Thoth. And one brought the god to him forthwith. And the majesty of this god said unto Thoth, let us depart to a distance from heaven, from my place, because I would make light, and the god of light, Ku, in the Tuat, so that's in America, and the land of caves. So that might be the Tuat is the area that America is in, and then the land of caves is actually America, because that's like what hell means, is caves, caverns, halls, the land of halls, but it's really just like America. Thou shalt write down the things which are in it, and thou shalt punish those who are in it, that is to say, the workers who have worked iniquity or rebellion through thee. I will keep away from the servants whom this heart of mine loatheth. So Thoth is like Odin. I'm pretty damn sure he's Mercury, the planet Mercury. So Mercury is seen to go I don't know. I think this is like cutting me off. Well, shit, I'll just like finish it in case it's like not cutting. I'll just say like Mercury is a planet known to like, due to its cycles, it's always often associated with the underworld because it's seen to like descend beneath the horizon and sometimes disappear and yada yada. So, you know, it's also Odin, who is known to be in Valhalla, which is in the underworld. I'm not sure if it's not clear if Valhalla is the whole of America or just part of it. And it makes sense that Thoth is the one that keeps the records because like all these maps of America are made by the, you know, in the city of Thoth. So it might have a double meaning in the sense of relating to the planet and relating to the followers of Thoth keeping the records about America, just as the followers of Odin probably did, you know, among the Norse and whatnot. Yeah, all right. I guess it's cutting me off, so I'll just cut it off there. And I don't know. I gotta end it because my phone's wigging out, but I'll pick up later. Take care, everybody. Much love.